No F-bombs are armed, and they will not be dropped. This is not a warning. I'm reading a script. This week, I have a situation that has come up that I will be unable to live stream. This premiere is in place of the live stream. From Il Principe by Niccolo Machiavelli, uh, selected quotes. Chapter 16 concerning liberality and meanness. Commencing then with the first of the above named characteristics, I say it would be well to be reputed liberal. However, a prince thus inclined will consume in such acts all his property, and will be compelled in the end to tax his people and to do everything he can to get money. This will soon make him odious to his subjects. Thus, having offended many and rewarded few, he is affected by the very first trouble and imperiled by whatever may be the first danger. He runs at once into the reproach of being miserly. Therefore, a prince, if he is wise, ought not to fear the reputation of being mean, for in time he will come to be considered more considered than if liberal, seeing that with his economy his revenues are enough that he can defend himself against all attacks and is able to engage in enterprise without burdening his people. Chapter 20 are fortresses and many other things to which princes often resort, advantageous or hurtful. Some princes, so as to hold securely the state, have disarmed their subjects. Although we cannot give a final judgment on all of these, I will speak as comprehensively as the matter itself will admit. There has never been a new prince who disarmed his subjects. Rather, when he has found them disarmed, he has always armed them. By arming them, those arms become yours, those men who were distrusted become faithful, and those who were faithful are kept so, and your subjects become your adherents. And whereas all subjects cannot be armed, when yet when those whom you do arm are benefited, yet when those whom you do arm are benefited, the others can be handled more freely, and this difference in their treatment, which they quite understand, makes the former your dependents and the latter excuse you. But when you disarm them, you at once offend them by showing that you distrust them. Therefore, as I have said, a new prince in a new principality has always distributed arms. I cut this chapter up to specifically the subject of keeping and bearing arms. He talks about fortresses and other things to which princes often resort. Never has a prince disarmed his subjects. Rather, when he has found them disarmed, he has always armed them. When you disarm them, you at once offend them by showing that you distrust them. A new prince in a new principality has always distributed arms. Those who could not, the, those who could be armed in the new principality today would translate into mandatory carry. Arm the people, except the ones you absolutely cannot and must not for whatever reason. He spoke of liberality and meanness. The prince or the state gives away everything. Well, where does it give the thing? Where does it get the thing to give? Taxes. And if you give away all of the money, you have no money left to give. It is as simple as that. Now we're facing even more crisis. The state has given away $3.5 trillion on infrastructure. Yeah, that go over that with a fine tooth comb. You'll find so much pork in there. It's like a factory, like a sausage factory. It wasn't about infrastructure. It was about paying off supporters. It was about making supporters happy. Now, to recover that money, the state will have to tax at an exorbitant rate in order to try to make up the loss. And they cannot. They will never be able to fully make up this loss. On the subject of bearing arms, my understanding is that the ATF ruled that folding guns are illegal. I hope my understanding is wrong, because I would like to see a return to a quaint and curious firearm of antiquity, the Dolnay. Dolnay is the one that you probably think of as the Apache. It's not the proper name. Dolnay is. It is a set of brass knuckles, plus a revolver, plus a fold out knife. My concept is, first of all, ditch the knife. It's not really that helpful. Second, stretch out the barrel to the absolute, or cylinder, to the absolute maximum length possible, integrating the barrels into the cylinder. So now you'll have 6 barrels. You know, like a pepper box revolver. Just saying. Two main varieties: a 10 millimeter, which means it could use 40 cal, and a 9 millimeter, which should mean it could use 38 and 357, excuse me, um, 380 and 357 SIG, and a couple others. Not as efficiently, not as effectively, but it could do it, and rifled barrels. Now, at the kind of short range, purely self defense that this weapon was intended for, still highly effective in a smoothbore configuration, but a rifled barrel would be an improvement by itself. You could then flip it over into a set of brass knuckles. There's this mistaken belief that brass knuckles are, quote, fist loaders. I know what a fist loader is. They're absolutely dangerous to the user. Fist loader is something that makes your hand harder or bigger or heavier or hit harder. That is not what brass knuckles are. Brass knuckles are a set of rings around your finger. Well, that's not protecting your fingers at all. Your knuckles are still exposed. And if you don't hit perfectly square, your knuckles will impact the target. And as a matter of fact, I've used brass knuckles. Yes, your knuckles will impact the target, just are less likely to break your hand or re break it in my case. What they do is inside your hand. The impact from your hand hitting the target creates forces that would normally go into your hand. What brass knuckles does is redirects that force into the back strap of the brass knuckles, which should be right here if you're using them correctly. and thus transfer all of that energy rather from going to your hand to your forearm. This is a lot harder to break than these. Trust me, I've tried. And succeeded in one. Classic quote, boxer's break. It happens right about here, and it's from hitting something like this, or otherwise unsquare. And it still hurts 20 years later. The dolné can be folded over into a set of brass knuckles, and the optics of the brass knuckle is, of course, horrible and disgusting, and I hate it myself, but if you're close enough to somebody that they can use brass knuckles on, one of you's in trouble. One of you is absolutely wrong. Both of you may be wrong for the exact same reason, but one of you at least is wrong. You shouldn't be close enough to somebody that they can hit you with brass knuckles. It's not a hard concept to understand, is it? All right, moving on. By now, the California recall is over. I'm not sure what direction it's going to go. I'm hearing things from Pappa Carry that are very heartening, and I'm hearing other things that are very disheartening. One thing by the time you see this that we will know for sure is whether California's elections really are free and fair. Earlier today, Capitol Police pulled over a truck. Oh my God. How do I say this without being rude? That guy was either retarded or he's a decoy. He's a plant. He had swastikas all over his fucking truck. He had swastikas all over his truck and knives and bayonets and machetes and all kinds of edged weapons, apparently. And when he was pulled over, he said he was on patrol. This is the worst play acting case I've ever heard. Um, Again, either this guy's retarded and just retarded, or he's a plant. And of course, you'll never hear of him again if he was a plant. Right now, I'm going through news articles because I owe you guys an hour. I'm going to give you an hour. Okay. Headline is Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, tells irate lawmakers the U.S. was ready on Afghanistan. I guess he's telling the truth. We were ready. The results that we got were exactly the ones that were intended. Somebody, in an act of defiance, decided to destroy Afghan army equipment. And good for him. I figure about 25% of that equipment will be up and running actually by now. And the remaining 75% of the remaining 75%, well over half, will eventually be up and running again. Joe Biden got exactly what he intended to get. Leave it at that. Up to and including the fact that the Taliban was outright lying about their intentions on human rights. Let's say something else about the California election. I've heard of John Cox. He seems like a decent man. I know Gavin Newsom. There's a reason I call him No Mandate. I've been watching his career since he was still in San Francisco, and he hasn't changed one bit since then. Larry Elder can take him. Larry Elder could take him if he sat on the sidelines. And more recently, the left has come out and admitted they're terrified of him. Now, everybody says that the girl threw an egg. Well, that egg looked like a rock to me. I'm sure there's a reason they're saying it's an egg, it's an egg, it's an egg, it's an egg. But it looked like a rock to me. They tried to assassinate him, whether it failed by incompetence or whatever. They tried to assassinate him. That's how afraid they are of him. Joe Biden's vaccine mandate is not going to work out the way he planned. It's making more and more people recalcitrant. There are slowly growing mandatory vaxxers who looked at that and said, "What? What are you talking about? This is stupid." You know, admittedly, some of them say this is stupid because it doesn't go far enough. But most of them are saying this is stupid, it goes too far. You can't do it that way. He literally forced people to change sides in that debate. All by himself. Congratulations, Joe. Right. I've gotten through pretty much all the news I can get through as it stands right now, and I'm only at 20 minutes. Get home bags. Think of your get home bag just as a way to get home in a possibly overnight trip and plan accordingly. You're only going to need 1 day worth of food. You're going to need most of a day's worth of water. Hopefully, you'll be in a position where you can get water because water is very nefariously difficult to transport. If it weren't for the practical problems, I could say carry a 5 gallon bottle of water. Again, practical problems are everything. You cannot carry 5 gallons of water around with you. 1 gallon of water is going to be very, very difficult to begin with. A day's worth of food, several hours worth of water, the ability to make some kind of rest overnight if you critically have to, not just, well, I've gotten to this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and rest. No, keep going and keep going and keep going until you literally fall asleep on your feet. And then find a good hidden place to try to rest. You'll notice I have a sleeping bag on mine now. It's too big, it's too heavy, and it's too confining. You have your arms inside, and if somebody comes on you unaware, your hands are trapped. They've got you at the disadvantage. Now, If you have your gun on you, you could just sort of point it at them and take a couple fuck you rounds and maybe they'll run away. Or maybe they'll just start beating on you. I remember back when I was homeless, I was working in one place and I'd have to walk from there to my office because I was homeless and had a job. That's great. Every morning I'd have to go through this one underpass and I'd see this one homeless guy. Every day he was at that same underpass. I remember how easy it would have been for me to accidentally kick him in the head because he was always kind of crooked on the sidewalk, and how I had to be careful to not hit him because I'm not like that. God, I hope he got out of there. I got out of this being homeless myself with a lot of help, and not from the people who caused me to be there. And I hope he got out of there because I can just see that someday somebody's going to go by drunk, maybe, or just pissed off at the world and kick him in the head. And there's not going to be anything he can do to stop them. He will be asleep. There's a story that just caught my attention. Vaccine mandates, 3 times shots were required in U.S. history. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Oh, damn it. Okay, except it's a video. Damn shame. I don't do Microsoft um, videos because their videos are crap. They put the program together like a pile of shit. Okay, I have recently gotten back into bicycles. When I was living in one particular region, bicycle was my primary mode of transportation. I loved my bike. Oh my God, I love that bike so much. Wish I still had it. It was a $100 Walmart special with a $500 electric motor. The electric motor was up in the front wheel. The hub of the wheel was actually the motor, and it would connect to the battery. Battery would power it. Front wheel would turn. I remember once I had it flipped over. I pushed the button, and it started spinning, and I couldn't get it to stop. All right, I just pushed the button for a moment, and I could hear the motor cut out when I released the button, and it was still turning like a minute later. Oh, it was built up beautifully. It had a beautiful rear uh, rack for cargo. Hanging from that was panniers. It had two 20-foot sections of chain and what I thought at the time was an excellent lock. Turns out not that great a lock after all. But it was a beautiful, beautiful setup. You should probably try to invest in something like that. Even if it's not part of your get home plan, try to invest in something that will amplify your abilities. Also, bicycling is good for you. Now that I have the bike, I'm going to be biking to and from work. I'm not going to drive and I'm not going to walk. I go almost as fast on the bike because of city traffic as I do in my car with a whole lot less pain and suffering than walking. It's a perfect solution. I should have done this like 4 months ago. Right. So the headline had been 3 times shots were required in U.S. history. Um, I only know of one, and that was polio. We'll talk about polio vaccine for a moment. The easiest vaccine to administer, the Salk vaccine, was recalled because it was crippling people, because it was not properly tested before it was used. Just saying. Same for the anthrax, by the way, vaccine. All right, guys. I'm really sorry about this. I'm not going to even be able to fill a whole half hour, I think. And that sucks. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to fill a whole half hour, let alone a full hour, which is what I owe you. As for why this is a premiere rather than a live stream, um, there is a situation going on with Pappa Carry that he doesn't control. I therefore can't control. I could choose not to go back and deal with the situation, but come on. You think I'm going to choose you guys over my own father? I'm sorry, I can't do that. And I would expect the same out of you. But get your get home bag ready. Uh, get your bag ready. Even if you use the commercially available red bags, just add what you think you need and be careful because the straps on some of them are not as good as others. Um, and keep calm and mandatory carry on.